Okay guys, so what we're going to be talking about just now is the tools that you may need when you're doing your camper build. Now every tool will probably make the job easier, and they're all readily available from suppliers. You can get them cheap, get it expensive. It depends if you want to go into that name brand. Now one thing that we have been using, which is quite useful, is the chop saw. So this gives you the ability to move the blade around for varying widths, and obviously you can bring it down and saw through that. Ideal for repetition, so if you're doing a lot of beams or some like 2x2s or 2x1s, then this is an ideal product for that. It's adjustable on the angles as well, so we can do 45s over there, so if you're doing like a picture frame, it can be useful for that. But that's just one saw. Obviously you've got the old hand saws, you've got your metal saws, so you're going to be using them maybe to cut some plastic or some metal. Now another tool that we've been using is this saw. So this saw is able to cut a long length, and it goes on a guide rail. So the guide rail there is basically to get you to go in a straight line when you're cutting those cuts. It will cut anything from 5mm ply right up to 25mm, so it's ideal, like I said, for sawing most of that stuff. The track saw itself comes with the track, so you put your track down, you put this in, you line everything up, and then you just saw away. So that's ideal for making straight lines. Now if you're going to be making corners or turning the corner on a particular item, or you want to cut something that you're going to cut a piece out of, then I would recommend a jigsaw. Now the jigsaws come with different blades at the front, so you can change these blades quite easily from a rough, thick blade to a smooth blade that you can cut steel with. But what we're talking is small amounts of steel or aluminium. But these are ideal for getting around them corners. Now everybody's going to be familiar, hopefully, with the cordless drill. Obviously you've got different attachments that you can put on the front, rechargeable batteries. What we found is that if we're here all day, then if we're using this quite regularly, it'll probably last us a day. Variable speed on this one, so faster for holes, slow for screws. Torque settings on it as well, so that if you're worried about over torquing a screw, then obviously you can torque that down to a particular torque that you're familiar with. Now another tool that we've been using quite a lot is the router. The router's available from around about £40. They're not very costly now, they used to be at one stage. But this is ideal for cutting down smaller sections or difficult to get to sections. On ours we've used it for getting the table edges on, to reducing the width of the trim, so we can get the actual trim onto a table edge or a worktop. But that's another tool that we've used quite a lot. So our next item is the orbital sander. We've used this for taking down or planing off wood to get it from a stage where it's not very smooth to get it smooth. So it's rough cut to smooth. So this is going to be ideal for something like that, where you want to get a particular nice finish on it before either painting or staining. Obviously you can get these with Velcro pads now, so they're easy to change, not too costly, but ideally another thing you can use in the workshop. Now we've got a corded nail gun. It will do nails, it will also do staples, but we haven't used it as much as I thought we would, basically because we've nearly screwed everything together. But on your thinner stuff where you're not going to want to see a nail or a screw, then these are ideal, because the nails that come out are nearly, well almost anyway, they're almost invisible when they come out. So you can just about see a small dot when you are doing this. But a nail gun is an option. Other than that, I would invest in a small hammer and pins, so small nails actually. But that's another option if you want to go that way. Now something that most people don't think about is how we're going to power it. So you've got two options. Either you're going to go for a battery tool or electric. So I wouldn't be without this particular item. So 15 meters of cable. So this can be plugged into your workshop, garage, or in a unit. So we plug that in, we take it out to the van, and we've got a couple of sockets on the front that we can use for our equipment out there. Because a couple of times over this winter build, we've had to put the heater on and still use the tools. So this is going to be especially useful if you're working outside. Now if you're wanting to do 2 or 3 jobs at once, sometimes you can't hold everything together. So what we've invested in is these clamps. You press the button there, it allows you to move it around, or if you can tighten it up onto an item, you can simply use a little trigger there to reduce the amount of jaw size, and that will give you a clamping hand, or a hand to clamp on. But we've managed with 2 on this occasion. So they're especially useful when you're trying to hold a small trim to a larger trim and you want to get something like a jaw around it while you nip back, get the hammer and nails or screws, and then come back and place it in place. But we've used these, I would say, almost daily throughout the build. Now one thing we have used when we've been joining wood to wood is the pocket holes. Now quite a lot of people have commented on this in previous videos regarding what we're going to use this for. So ideally, instead of putting a screw into a spar or a beam and you're joining like a corner, you can use these and it hides the corner. You'll have seen them if you've been watching other people on camper builds. That's one reason why we bought it, is because other people are using it and it's a good idea. So you can use this kit. You don't have to use the screws that come with it because they are quite expensive, but we bought that kit quite inexpensively, and also a starter kit on screws that came with it. What we didn't realise is that you can use ordinary screws with a pocket hole drill. Now we come into our measuring section. So my daughter bought me one of these, thank you very much, and it's a square and it gets us the angles that we want. You've got other things inside here to give you an idea of what other things are available. So we can use this for measuring, we can use this for angles, and obviously we've used it throughout the build to try to keep everything square. Now when you're moving on to larger things, this is one of 2, so it's just a simple L square. So if we want to measure out 25 inches by 13 or 14 inches, then we've got the availability to do it on that small one. If we want to measure something a bit larger, then we've invested in one of these. So that'll get you your edge, and this will give you the other edge. So that's a larger one. That one's 50 inches long, quite a long one, that one, and I think it's probably around about 24 wide. So you've got measurements there to get into your larger pieces. We've used this on our worktops, on our uprights, on anything that's quite large, to measure and to try and keep everything at the correct angle. Now to keep everything stuck together, we've used simply Gorilla Glue. It's the wood glue, and it's a fantastic product for what we've done in the camper. So basically I would recommend this to glue your sections together. Obviously most of the campers being glued and screwed or glued and nailed, but this is the product for us. So along with all the power tools we've got, we're going to be obviously buying some kind of other tools that are going to go in that toolbox. And in that toolbox already we've got hammers, screwdrivers, pliers, other small tools that we wouldn't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily have for this camper build, and we've used them thoroughly. So you never know when you're going to be using them next, but they always come in useful later on. So that's it for today, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. What we're going to be doing is finishing off the van in the next couple of months, and hopefully then we're going to show you the full project. So that's it from me guys, see you next time.